Chapter 1. Pumping his hips, Trenton Johnson gazed down at Tanya, the beautiful young woman beneath him. A thin coat of sweat covered his body in the dark, where only a sliver of light managed to maneuver its way between the thick curtains covering the windows in her bedroom. He had her wrists pinned together above her head, and one hand lifted her hips to accept each of his powerful thrusts. Her cries of passion filled the bedroom. "You like that?" he panted. "Yes, Trenton, yes!" Almost there, tension vibrated in her voice, and his own release pressed ever closer. Using steady, rhythmic pumps, he sent them both to orgasmic completion. She released a gasping wail, and his body shuddered before collapsing on top of her. With a groan, Trenton rolled onto his back, panting heavily. Needing a few minutes to recover, he ran a hand over his damp face and stared up at the rotating ceiling fan. "Incredible," Tanya moaned, finally catching her breath. Limber and enthusiastic, she had turned into one of his regular hookups from the first night he'd dived between her silky brown thighs. He'd be ready for round 2 soon. Right then, his phone rang, a special ringtone he never ever ignored. Trenton stretched across the mattress and picked up the phone from the table next to the bed. "Hello?" "I'm at home. You still coming over?" Alannah asked. His best friend was back in town. Trenton smiled. "Of course." "When are you coming?" "Soon." "How soon?" "Soon." "You busy?" He glanced at Tanya, whose frowning gaze held a healthy dose of curiosity. "A little bit." "Oh," she said, the word heavy with meaning. "I'll see you when you get here, then. Bring me something to eat when you do." "All right, bye." Trenton replaced the phone on the bedside table and rolled onto his back. "Who was that?" Tanya pouted. When he didn't answer, she stroked his bicep and, resting her head on his shoulder, flung one shapely leg across his thighs, an obvious ploy to get him to relax. Trenton stirred, disentangling himself from her brown limbs, and she moaned her discontent. "I need to get rid of this." He indicated the condom with a pointing finger. "Hurry back," she replied lazily, with a languid stretch. He closed the door to the bathroom and disposed of the condom in the toilet, relieved himself, and then flushed. Staring at his reflection in the mirror while washing his hands, he thought about Tanya. She had a nice face and a great figure, and they'd been lovers on and off for 8 months, ever since she'd popped out of the cake at his fraternity brother's bachelor party. But they didn't have much in common besides sexual gymnastics, and he was bored. Probably time to move on. He re-entered the bedroom and picked up his discarded clothes from the floor. "I thought you were staying for another round," Tanya said quietly. "Nah, I better go." Trenton tugged on his boxer briefs. "Why?" She sat up and let the sheet fall to her waist. "You can stay the night if you want." "I have things to do. Have to go see a friend of mine." He slipped the polo shirt over his head. Only the rustle of his clothes could be heard in the quiet that followed. Then, "Alannah?" She said the name with a heavy amount of resentment, and Trenton bristled but slipped on his shoes. What is it with her? What makes her so special? His head snapped up, and he looked Tanya squarely in the eye. "I don't like your tone." She shrank back against the headboard. "I didn't mean anything by it. It's just..." Definitely time for him to move on. The cracks in their perfectly orchestrated relationship were starting to show. They'd had some great times. Excellent, freaky times. He turned an eye to the cuffs abandoned on the floor. But if he didn't end this now, it could get out of hand. He'd been in a situation before where he stayed in a sexual relationship past its shelf life, and there was nothing pretty about a woman who thought she deserved more than he offered. And he sure as hell wouldn't tolerate anyone trying to come between him and his best friend. Trenton picked up his phone and keys from the nightstand, and Tanya slipped naked from the bed. Pressing her supple body against his, she kissed his bicep, where the image of a hissing snake circled the muscle, one of many tattoos that ran the length of both arms. "See you next week?" She looked up at him with a hopeful expression on her face and placed a hand on the waistband of his jeans. He'd have his executive assistant send her flowers and a nice piece of jewelry. Expensive trinkets softened the blow and minimized the dramatic fallout of the untimely end to an affair. He extricated himself from her arms. "I'll call you." Trenton parked his white, customized Range Rover in the driveway outside the two-bedroom townhouse Alannah rented. Like the others in the complex, it had an attached one-car garage. All of them, painted in bright, candy-colored paint and white trim, looked like a row of dollhouses in the daytime, each with a perfect little square of grass that was so well maintained and nurtured, it looked like an area rug had been dropped in front of the house. On the way over, he'd stopped at the Best Thai Restaurant, a fitting name. It really was the best, and the only Thai restaurant he and Alannah patronized. 2 weeks had passed since he'd last seen his buddy. She'd used her vacation to visit her parents in Arizona, where they'd moved after her father retired from the post office and her mother from teaching. 14 days had never felt so long, and he couldn't wait to see her. Trenton strolled up the stone-lined walkway to the unit, second from the left in a building that held 4 houses. He rang the doorbell, and when Alannah swung open the door, his chest expanded and he couldn't suppress the grin that spread across his face. Seeing her always filled him with such excitement, as if he'd won the lottery. "Hey, stranger. What's that?" She reached for the bag. He held the plastic sack out of reach. "Is that all I'm good for? Come here, girl. I missed you." He grabbed her with one arm and lifted her from the floor. He inhaled her candy apple smell, the scent of the sanitizer she often used. Giggling softly, she wound her arms around his neck and squeezed him tight. The best hugs in the world came from his buddy. "Glad to know I was missed," she said softly. He set her back on the floor and closed the door. "You know you were missed." Alannah stood before him in a pair of gray gym shorts and a white tank top with her hair hidden under a burgundy satin bonnet. She frowned at him. "I go away for 2 weeks, and you let yourself go." Trenton rubbed a hand across his bearded jaw. "See what happens when you leave me? I'm lost without you." She ran a hand over his head. "You need a haircut badly. Careful now." He brushed a hand over the top of his head. "Wouldn't want you to get seasick from all these waves." "Oh, Lord. These women have your head so swollen I'm surprised you made it through the door." He chuckled and eyed the bonnet on her head. "You ready for bed?" "I didn't know if you'd be staying late with one of your hoes." "I told you I'd be here as soon as you let me know you were home. And by the way, I don't mess with hoes." "If you say so, but I figured I'd better get ready for bed anyway." Her eyes lit up and a sneaky smile curved her lips. "And I have a surprise for you. But before I tell you my surprise," she sniffed the air and eyed the bag in his hand, "I smell Thai." This time she managed to snatch the bag, and he laughed as she scurried off in the direction of the kitchen. He trailed her to the pint-sized space decorated with mahogany cabinets and stainless steel appliances. Her home had an open floor plan, with the kitchen, dining area made up of a small round table and 4 chairs with off-white covers, and living room bleeding right into each other. "Lemonade?" Alannah asked. "Sounds good." Trenton leaned against the counter near the sink while Alannah removed the contents of the bag onto the breakfast bar. Eyeing the row of 20-odd recipe books of various sizes nestled on the shelf above the microwave, he said, "You added to your collection." She nodded. "I picked up 2 cookbooks on Southwest cooking when I was in Arizona." She removed 2 plates from the cabinets and placed them on the Formica counter. "How was Arizona?" They'd talked a few times while she was gone, but for the most part, he'd left her alone to enjoy her time off. "Nothing special. My sisters flew in the last few days, so the whole family spent time together. We had a blast." She inhaled deeply. "This smells so good. Who cooked? At or Cheo?" Their favorite chef was At. They always increased the tip in the jar at the register whenever he cooked. The meals were hit or miss when Cheo worked in the kitchen. "At. And when he found out you were back in town, he threw in extra basil rolls. He's in love with you." She laughed, tossing a glance at him over her shoulder. "Stop." "He is. If you ever show him the slightest interest, I'm sure he'll leave his wife." He watched her pull utensils from drawers and then start scooping out brown rice. "So, what's my surprise?" he asked. She turned to face him. and her hazel eyes met his hesitantly. "I've been doing some thinking. I'm not getting any younger. None of us are. And, well, I want to make some changes in my life. So, you know what? It's better for me to show you than tell you." She removed the bonnet from her head and released her hair. Running her fingers through the strands, she sifted them loose until they tumbled past her shoulders. "What do you think?" Trenton took a good look at her. He walked over and lifted a few soft strands and rubbed them between his fingers. "You colored it." "Yes." Alannah bit the inside of her bottom lip. "What do you think?" "I like it," he said slowly. The vibrant auburn brightened her light amber skin tone. "Brings more attention to your freckles." Rust-colored spots lay splattered across her nose and cheeks. He grinned and tweaked her nose. She slapped his hand away. "Really? Ugh!" She hated her freckles, but he thought they were cute. She turned around so he could see her hair from the back and pushed her fingers through the shiny strands, shaking her head so the thick mass rippled back and forth across her back. "I had it cut in layers, too." Turning back around, she said, "I know it's pretty drastic. Well, for me, it's drastic, but I only had a few inches cut off. The craziest thing is the color. Auburn, can you believe it? After having dull brown hair all my life, I went with auburn." Her eyes brightened and filled with the excitement of the change. "It's an attention-getter," Trenton said evenly. "Hey, where are your glasses?" Being nearsighted, she seldom went without her glasses. Every time she took them off, she walked around squinting. "Oh, that's the other thing." She pointed to her eyes. "Contacts." "Contacts?" "Yes. I have the long-wearing ones that you can sleep in. It took me a while to get used to them. Sometimes I still reach for my glasses and then realize they aren't there. It's crazy, but yep, I'm wearing contacts now. I've had them for a week already." Trenton scratched the back of his head. "I don't understand. What's going on with you? What's with all the changes?" Alannah shrugged and started spooning food onto the plates again. "Like I said, I'm not getting any younger. It's time for me to act and look like a woman." "I like the way you looked before." She smiled briefly at him over her shoulder. "That's sweet, but you're saying that because you're my friend. I want to know what a man thinks." "I'm a man." "What the hell?" She giggled on her way to the refrigerator. "You know what I mean. You're more like a girlfriend than a man." Trenton stiffened. "Since when?" As Alannah poured lemonade. Hers was good and tart because she made it with fresh lemons and none of that powdered stuff into 2 glasses. He paid closer attention to her. She didn't just look different. She was acting different. She displayed more confidence than usual. And the shorts had to be the shortest pair of shorts he'd ever seen her wear. They put her legs on display in a way that made him take notice. Had her legs always been that long? She was small up top, but thick on the bottom, and the contrast was never more noticeable than today. Her butt appeared round and full, and her hips looked as if they'd widened since he'd seen her last. Not likely, but still. Damn. No comment? Alannah handed him a glass of lemonade. Trenton blinked. About what? About everything. My new look. Her voice fell off into a soft, disappointed whisper. She'd expected a different reaction, and for the life of him, he couldn't figure out why he wasn't excited for her. You look nice. I mean, you know, it's different. The changes will take some getting used to. Trenton took a large swig of lemonade, wishing the glass contained something stronger. Chapter 2. Alannah put away the dishes and then walked quietly back to the living room where Trenton was fast asleep. After the South Korean flick, they'd watched a full episode of Law & Order, but 15 minutes into the second episode, she'd glanced over and saw his eyes were closed. Despite being a member of one of the wealthiest families in America, no one could ever accuse Trenton of being a snob. His total lack of pretentiousness wasn't limited to his friendships. and even extended to the clothes he wore. Tonight, for example, he dressed down in a simple polo shirt and jeans, and it wasn't uncommon to see him do something as unorthodox as pair a department store shirt under a Brunello Cucinelli jacket. As Alannah watched his 6'3" body loll on the sofa, legs outstretched and head resting on the back of the chair, she smiled. Full lips, way too luscious for a man, were partially open in the deep throes of sleep. She should take a picture and blackmail him with it, but even in this comical pose, he managed to be endearing and was still the most attractive man she'd ever laid eyes on. Sexy, and with an abundance of testosterone. He had an impressive build of lean, taut muscles that traversed his body from top to bottom. His height could be imposing, particularly since she was a full 9 inches shorter than him, but there was nothing threatening about Trenton. He smiled too often and had an arrestingly beautiful and friendly face that made him well-liked and put people at ease. In fact, he couldn't stand to see anyone upset, and was that rare type of person beloved by both men and women. He'd even figured out how to remain friends with his exes, including the ones who swore undying love to him. Her gaze skimmed his wide shoulders and the colorful tattoos staining his muscular arms like shirt sleeves, hidden under pricey suits Monday through Friday, but today, fully exposed because of the navy blue polo shirt. Dark jeans hugged muscular thighs and long legs that strode with confidence wherever he went, and his big, masculine hands easily swallowed hers every time he'd ever taken her hand in his. Alannah bit down on the inside of her bottom lip, fighting back the soul-crushing longing of wanting to touch him the way his lovers could. What did his mouth taste like? What would it feel like to have his powerful body take possession of hers? Between her legs tingled from the arousing thoughts, and she closed her eyes. She'd never know. Why even allow her mind to go in that direction, where she dwelt on her pathetic feelings and desires for her best friend? She'd had plenty of time to think, and she intended to carry out her plan. Boring, quiet Alannah was a person of the past. Exciting, sexy Alannah would make a splash in Seattle and date up a storm. She walked over to the sofa and shook Trenton's shoulder. His head popped up, eyes fluttering open. They were a brilliant green color, the same shade as English peas or the fresh blades of grass that emerged in the spring. The pupils appeared hazy, and then focused on her as he came fully awake. "I fell asleep?" He stifled a yawn. "For a little while. I better get out of here." He stretched as he stood, reminding her of a mountain lion, big, golden, and powerful. He even moved like the dangerous predator, with an economy of motion that suggested he was never in a hurry, but always ready to pounce on prey. She envied the women lucky enough to be his victims. "If you're tired, sleep in the guest room," Alannah offered. Trenton shook his head and rubbed his hairy jaw. "I need to head home. I'm going to the club to play squash at 8. With a big yawn, he trudged toward the door. She followed, ogling the way the jeans hugged his tight butt, and stifled a sigh. Trenton turned with his hand on the knob. "I'm going to dinner at Mother's tomorrow night. You coming? I can swing by and pick you up." "Can't. I have a full day tomorrow. I have a million things to do before I go back to work on Monday." "Adelina's cooking a traditional Mexican meal." Adelina was his mother's housekeeper, who'd been with her for many years. "Do you understand what that means? Chicken mole is on the menu. You cannot, under any circumstances, miss authentic chicken mole." Alannah laughed. His sense of humor was one of the many things she loved about him. "Yes, I understand. But I have to pass. I really can't make it." Trenton placed a hand on each of her shoulders. The heat from his touch singed through her clothes to the skin underneath. She wished he would touch her, just once, in an inappropriate way. He searched her face. "You're all right, aren't you?" "Of course." She smiled brightly to put his mind at ease. I had a weird moment earlier, but I'm fine. And of course, you know I'd come if I didn't have a million things to do, which includes picking up Angel from the kennel. At the mention of her brown and black Yorkshire Terrier, Trenton wrinkled his nose in disgust and dropped his hands. He'd given her the dog as a Christmas present several years ago after she'd fallen in love with the mutual friend's dog. You should leave her there, he said. You say things like that and wonder why she hates you. The dog growled and barked at Trenton every time he came over. Oddly enough, she only behaved that way toward him. With everyone else, she was loving and playful. Like I care what that damn dog thinks. Trenton pulled her into a hug. She pressed her face into his neck and inhaled the crisp, herbal fragrance of his cologne and the fresh, right out of the shower scent of his skin. He must have stopped at home before coming over. The hair on his jaw tickled her face, but she resisted the urge to rub her cheek against the rough texture. His strong arms held her close, and she longed to run her hands up under his shirt and spread them across his wide back. Releasing her, he said, I'm out of here. Sleep tight. I'll see you next week for lunch. She wanted to say no, that she couldn't take the lunches and the dinners and the movies anymore. Instead, she said, I'll let you know. He tilted his head sideways, frowning. You're canceling lunch? I'm not canceling, but I don't know what my schedule will be like yet. Things are probably backed up at the lab, so I'll have to see before I confirm lunch. Call me Monday night and let me know. Okay. Agreeing was easier than fighting. And please get a haircut and a shave. Next time I see you, I don't want you to look like a mountain man. With a playful gleam in his eye, he grinned. I don't know. I might let my hair grow a little longer. And the ladies like the beard. He scrubbed his cheek with his knuckles. With that big head of yours, will you be able to make it through the front door to your truck? He chuckled heartily as he left, and Alannah closed the door behind him and let out a sigh. I didn't hear the deadbolt, Trenton said on the other side of the door. She rolled her eyes and twisted the bolt to the right. Happy now? Yes, smartass. Good night. Alannah smiled a little and stood at the door until she heard him drive away. After retrieving the satin bonnet from the kitchen, she turned out the lights and climbed the stairs to the second floor. She entered the quiet sanctuary of her bedroom, which contained silver and lavender furnishings and a large window with matching curtains that faced the front of the house. When she'd moved in, she asked Trenton to help her paint the room and put together the white dresser, bureau, and nightstand she'd purchased from IKEA. He'd shown up that Saturday with workers in tow and whisked her off to lunch and a movie. By the time they'd returned, the furniture had been put together and the room painted white with a heather gray accent wall. Alannah grinned as she stripped off her clothes. She'd only been teasing when she'd made that request of Trenton. As down-to-earth as he was, he did not like manual labor. She pulled a spaghetti-strap top over her head and then dug out a pair of Trenton's striped silk boxers that, unbeknownst to him, she'd pilfered from his dresser. Over the years, she'd borrowed t-shirts that she'd never returned, but she'd also stolen from him. Mostly boxers, but the occasional dress shirt and tie had also made its way to the bottom of her dresser drawer. If he ever saw her collection, he'd think she was a sicko for sure. She slipped into the queen-size bed and turned out the light. But Trenton filled her thoughts. She deserved at least an Emmy nod for effectively hiding her feelings. While she wanted to be more than friends, she was firmly, unequivocally in the friend zone, and had been for over 20 years. That would never change. And she winced as the pain of resignation lanced through her chest. For one, she wasn't his type. Too quiet and not sexy enough. Second, when two people have been friends as long as she and Trenton had been, it was too risky to take a chance on ruining their stable relationship. Alannah pulled the covers over her head and curled into a tight, miserable ball. The friend zone was a place she'd come to despise, because Trenton was the complete package, everything a woman could want. He had a great personality, a sense of humor, was confident, and very good-looking. Unfortunately, he was her best friend, closest confidant, and she was hopelessly in love with him. Chapter 3. Alannah removed her lab coat and hung it in her locker at Dymogenesis, the biomedical engineering facility where she worked. As a researcher in tissue engineering, she and the other employees in the fourth-floor lab worked on the creation of artificial organs and researched the effect they had on the human body. "I love your new look," one of her coworkers whispered as she zipped behind her. "Thanks." Alannah smiled shyly. The new hairstyle and clothes had caused an uptick in her workplace popularity, and she still wasn't used to all the attention yet. She hadn't brought her lunch today, and suffering through paltry choices of mystery meat and overcooked pasta in the company cafeteria didn't appeal, so she decided to take advantage of the sunny weather and go out for lunch. She exited the building into the University District, an eclectic mix of historic homes, eateries, and shops that surrounded the University of Washington. Strolling down University Way, or the Ave, as Seattleites tended to call it, she chose a sandwich shop for lunch. She planned to sit at one of the outside tables and peruse the fashion magazine tucked into her purse to get ideas for her next outfits. Minutes later, she settled on a bench with a hot pastrami sandwich, chips, and a drink. She'd only taken one bite of the sandwich and hadn't even removed the magazine from her purse yet when a male voice asked, "Mind if I join you?" Alannah looked up into the smiling and very attractive face of her coworker, Connor Bodell. Tall and lanky with dirty blonde hair, he'd caused quite a tizzy among the researchers when hired months ago. Alannah's mouth fell open, but she didn't know what to say. Another empty table was only a few feet away, and she wondered why he didn't sit there instead. Finally, she found her voice. "Sure. No one's sitting there." Inclining her head, she indicated the empty bench on the other side of the table. "Thanks." He sat down. "I'm Connor, by the way." "Alannah." He unwrapped his chicken sandwich and squeezed ketchup onto the edge of the wax paper. "So you work on the fourth floor at Dymogenesis, right?" He took a bite of his sandwich. "Yes. And you're in administration?" She knew exactly which department he worked in. Everyone did. The women, anyway. Connor nodded and swallowed. "Quality control department." "Boo. Hiss. Should I even be talking to you?" "Of course. I help you do your job better." He grinned, and his eyes lit up. They were green, like Trenton's, but a lighter shade. Alannah glanced down at her chips, silently berating herself. She had a bad habit of comparing every man she met to Trenton. No point, when he remained in a class by himself. "I've been trying to work up the nerve to talk to you," Connor said. Startled, Alannah shifted her gaze across the table. "Me?" He laughed softly. "Yes, you. Why do you sound so surprised?" I guess because I am surprised. I thought you were interested in someone else." She and some of the other female employees had speculated about his relationship with a chemist on the second floor. They'd had lunch together in the cafeteria a few times, and one evening when she'd worked late, Alannah had spotted them chatting out by his car in the parking lot. That was when she'd lost all hope of ever being noticed by him. But that had been weeks ago, before her trip to Arizona. Now that she thought about it, she hadn't seen them together since her return. "Well, you're wrong. I've had my eye on you since I started working at Dymogenesis." Not accustomed to this kind of attention, Alannah felt heat rise in her cheeks. "Oh." She munched a chip, unable to think of anything else to say. "I'm not saying it to flatter you." "It's the truth," Connor said quietly. He set down his sandwich, and his expression became more earnest. "I didn't approach because you always seemed so quiet. I wondered if you'd even be interested in a guy like me." "A guy like you? What does that mean?" "I'm not exactly a brainiac." Alannah laughed softly. "I'm not only interested in smart men." No? No. Her heart rate sped up a little, and she bit the inside of her bottom lip. Oh my goodness, where is this going? So I have a chance? He dipped a fry in ketchup and looked up at her right before slipping it into his mouth. I would say so. He nodded, breaking into a smile that lit up his entire face. Good. A group of 4 women sat down at the other table, their conversation and laughter very loud. Alannah and Connor ate in silence for a couple of minutes. I like your new look, he said. I like that you're wearing your hair down now, and the color makes you stand out. Thank you, she said. They ate in quiet for a while again, listening to the noises of the street and the rambunctious conversation at the other table. So, you don't have a boyfriend? She looked across at him. No. What about Trenton Johnson? He twirled a fry in ketchup. I've seen him at Dimogenesis a couple of times. Once in a red Maserati. He sounded in awe of the car. Alannah remembered that day, and all the stares when Trenton pulled up front in a red, limited edition Maserati Gran Turismo convertible with the obnoxious vanity plate Loverman. Her car had been at the dealer for routine maintenance, and he'd picked her up from work. Trenton's only a friend. Connor lifted his gaze to hers. Is he? I've heard what you've heard is wrong, Alannah said firmly, perhaps a little too harshly. She softened the words with a tentative smile. People misunderstand and always think there's something going on between us, but there's not. He and I are just friends. He nodded as if he fully understood the nature of their relationship, but then said in a low, disheartened voice, He's really rich. Alannah knew that tone well. It was the sound of a man intimidated by her close relationship with Trenton, whose wealth surpassed anything they could ever achieve in several lifetimes. Yes, he is. And he dates a lot of women. I'm sure you've seen him in magazines if you pay attention to that kind of thing. Not really. But I know who he is because, well, he's a member of the Johnson family. The Johnson name carried a lot of clout not only in Seattle, but in the country as a whole. They employed thousands and donated millions annually to various charitable organizations. Their personal lives were often fodder for the gossip blogs and tabloids, though they did their best to squash news stories about them and stay out of the spotlight. So if you're not dating Trenton Johnson, and there's no one else, Alannah confirmed. She held her breath, sensing he was about to ask a question. Would you like to go out with me? The smile on his face appeared a little nervous, not quite extending into his eyes to quell the anxiety she saw there. The new and improved Alannah had been asked on a date. Her makeover was working already. She had to force herself not to grin too hard. Yes, she said. He didn't make her breathless the way being around Trenton did, but she was certain that, with time, the butterflies would come. Connor's smile broadened into a full-on grin. Super. Next week, okay? He picked up his sandwich, as if he'd suddenly regained his appetite. Next week is perfect. Chapter 4. Alannah needed a whole new wardrobe, but a few new outfits would have to do for now. It was Saturday afternoon, and she was going to do some shopping so she'd have something to wear for her date with Connor next Saturday night. Too bad her girlfriend Terry couldn't accompany her on the shopping trip. One of the technicians at the day spa and salon had called in sick, and Terry had picked up the extra shift. Alannah, honey, I feel so bad about canceling on you. Her voice came through the car's speakers. Alannah backed her black Lexus LS out of the garage. The leather interior was the color of parchment paper and the wood grain a dark walnut. She'd never owned a new car in her life until Trenton presented the extravagant gift for her 30th birthday, complete with a red bow on top. Despite her protests, she'd loved the car on sight and relished the new car smell. I hate you have to cancel too. You know I have no fashion sense. You'll be fine, Terry laughed. By the way, make sure you get some nice underwear. Nothing like a lacy set of bras and panties to make you feel sexy, and Connor will appreciate the effort, too. This is our first date. There's no way he's seeing my underwear. You never know. It may go really well. Not that well, Terry, Alannah said, driving to the stop sign at the end of her street. Fine, whatever. Just make sure you get something cute, and whatever outfits you pick, highlight your best attributes. Big booties are in, so play up your advantage. Alannah merged into traffic. I don't know. Remember, this is all about the new and improved Alannah. You don't have to hide behind the baggy shirts and all those long skirts. You're not Amish, are you? Alannah giggled. No, I'm not. Okay then. Let loose. And you might as well look around for a few nice evening dresses too, for when you have to attend one of those fancy events with your other man. Alannah rolled her eyes. Trenton is not my man. Honey, he's so damn fine. I don't know how you resist jumping his bones every time you see him. We're just friends, Terry. How many times do I have to tell you that? Until I believe it. But anyway, if Connor is as hot as you say, who cares about your hot best friend? Hang on. Terry covered the phone, and Alannah heard the muffled tones of her conversation with someone in the salon. Finally, she came back on the line. Gotta run. My appointment's here. Have fun, and I'll catch up with you later. Smooches. Bye. Alannah disconnected the Bluetooth call and continued to Westfield South Center Shopping Mall, with a massive food court, clothing stores that catered to a variety of tastes, and a movie theater. The largest shopping center in Washington was often crowded. But upon arrival, she lucked out and cruised into a vacant space when another driver pulled out. In the parking lot outside Macy's, she looked at the 6 stores on her list. A trip to Soma was a must today. As Terry pointed out, she needed new undergarments. Right then, the phone rang. Trenton this time. What are you doing? The sound of wind let her know he was driving. Alannah cradled the phone between her ear and shoulder, folded the list, and tucked it into her purse. About to do some shopping. I need new clothes. New clothes for what? It's all part of my makeover. I need new going-out clothes. Plus, I have a date. She squirted candy apple-scented sanitizer in her hands and rubbed them together. The silence on the other end of the line prompted her to hold the phone away from her ear and stare at the LCD screen, wondering if the call had been disconnected. Hey, are you there? I'm here. You have a date, huh? Who is he? Alannah thought for a minute. Someone at work? She hedged. The guy you mentioned the other night? Yes. Thought you said he had a girlfriend. I was wrong. Another pause. You act as if you don't want to tell me about this guy. You know I'm going to have to check him out. Actually, that's what I don't want. Alannah pursed her lips. What do you mean? I always check out your guys. This one's different. How's he different? I really like him. So, you don't want me to find out if he's a good guy or not because you really like him? When he said it like that, it sounded ridiculous. It's not that. Alannah watched the families coming in and out of the mall's entrance. A boy and a girl skipped in front of their parents, and a mother juggled numerous bags while reaching for her son's hand. I don't want you to scare him off, she admitted. Trenton chuckled, as if she were being silly. I won't scare him off. You always scare them off, and this time I don't want him to leave. If he's a real man, he won't. Trenton. She had to make him see reason. Connor was already intimidated by him, and his big brother routine could spoil the relationship between them before it even started. All right, fine. I won't scare him off. But I want to meet him. That's non-negotiable. You will, eventually. Alannah looked down at her hands. They'd been down this road before. Trenton always screened her boyfriends, but she wanted him far away this time. She'd had lunch again with Connor yesterday and could tell he was different. Sweet and honest. He was the kind of man she needed to help her get over Trenton. She climbed out of the car. I have to run. I'm going to go into the mall, sadly on my own. Terry was supposed to come with me, but she had to cancel because of work. What are you up to today? Nothing. Want some company? Alannah closed the door and stood beside the car. Trenton's question made her frown. Company for what? Shopping. Shopping? Yes. I'll take Terry's place. Huh? He laughed, a rich, sexy sound that made her toes curl in her low-heeled sandals. Seriously, I'll come and give you my opinion, from a male point of view, which is probably better anyway. Trent, you hate shopping. If it weren't for your stylist, you'd wear the same clothes every season. Asking Trenton to go shopping was like inviting a child to the dentist. Neither looked forward to the painful experience. He never shopped for girlfriends. The task of purchasing their gifts was delegated to his assistant. He never even shopped for himself, employing the same stylist as several Hollywood leading men. She consulted with him on a regular basis about his wardrobe, and when he had a special event to attend, he gave her a call. Every few months she flew up with a barrage of selections. They went through his closet and discarded the old, brought in the new, and when the new season started, they did the same all over again. I hate shopping, but I'm not that bad. Besides, I'll make an exception for my buddy. Okay, if you're willing, I'm fine with you coming to offer your opinion, but I don't want to hear any whining if I take too long. I promise not to whine. Where are you? Westfield South Center. I'm going into Macy's right now. I'm not too far away. I'll meet you at the front door in 10, maybe 15 minutes. When Trenton arrived, Alannah's heart leapt. He'd shaved and cut his hair since she last saw him, and wore jeans and a black V-neck shirt that played up the color of his swarthy skin and left his tatted arms bare. Even in those ordinary clothes, he turned heads. He stopped in front of her, his grin large, lazy and sexy. Ready? Taking a breath to still her racing heart, Alannah nodded. Let's go. Chapter 5. Trenton stood behind Alannah on the escalator to the women's department of Macy's. Her hair was braided into a single thick plait that rested over her right shoulder, and she wore fitted jeans, unusual for her, but without being indecent. Unlike the short shorts she'd had on the other day, which he still found disturbing. An oversized shirt drooped off her right shoulder. It was only a shoulder, but he wasn't accustomed to seeing Alannah dressed like that. She usually covered up. Everything. That had to be the reason why his gut tightened when he saw her, and his eyes were drawn to the exposed skin. Again and again. In the women's department, they browsed racks of clothes and accessories. According to what she'd told him, she was on the hunt for a jumpsuit and 2 dresses, one for a formal occasion and another she could wear out to dinner or somewhere informal. Minutes into the search, Trenton held up a blue jumpsuit with long sleeves. What about this? A few feet away, Alannah wrinkled her freckled nose. I want something a little more edgy. Edgy? He echoed, but she'd already moved away. Trenton continued his search. Glances from women came his way every now and again with the occasional smile, but he focused on working his way through the racks. A few times he held up an article of clothing for Alannah's approval, and each time she alternated between shaking her head and wrinkling her cute little nose. After a while, Trenton knew he'd made a mistake. Now he remembered why he avoided clothes shopping, and especially with a woman. This excursion could take forever, and there were other things he'd much rather be doing that were less painful, more interesting, and less time-consuming, such as watching paint dry or driving nails into his hand with a sledgehammer. I'm tired, he announced, and looked up. He searched the area for Alannah, but she was across the sales floor, talking to one of the sales reps. He sauntered over to join the conversation. That's what I'm here for, the saleswoman was saying. Too much makeup covered her light brown skin, and her almond-shaped eyes slanted upward to give her an exotic appearance. She glanced in his direction when he walked over, and her expression changed to one he'd grown accustomed to since his teen years, one of female appreciation. May I help you? This is my friend, Alannah said. He's helping me pick out my outfits. Well, it's always nice to have a male perspective. She looked him up and down, unmistakable interest flashing in her eyes before she returned her attention to Alannah. "Here's what we'll do. I'll pull together some outfits based on what you told me you'd like. I already have the perfect idea for a dress. With your red undertones, it would look beautiful. Adding the right amount of color to your cheeks with a smoky eye would bring the outfit together." Excited at the prospect of dressing Alannah, the inflection of her voice surged higher and she talked with her hands. "We'll have a sort of runway experience where you try on different outfits with the accessories, and your friend," she cast another lustful look at Trenton, "can help you decide. Sound good?" "Sounds like a plan to me." Alannah looked up at Trenton. "You okay with that?" "As long as I don't have to walk around anymore, I'm fine. I'll gladly be a judge." "The fitting room is over there," the saleswoman said. She touched a hand to the name tag on her chest. "I'm Julia." "Alannah." "Trenton." "Alannah, Trenton, there are seats near the fitting rooms where you can sit down. Give me a few minutes and I promise you won't regret it." "Thank you." Julia walked away and Alannah clapped her hands together rapidly. "I'm so excited. Wish I'd done this before." Trenton flung an arm around her shoulders. "Come on." They strode toward the fitting rooms and found a trio of dark blue sofas. They dropped onto the one in the middle, sitting close to each other. "This should be fun," Trenton said dryly. "You said you didn't mind," Alannah reminded him. "I don't mind at all, actually." Her face screwed up into a doubtful expression. "Trust me, I'm glad to be seated. This is way more comfortable than running around the sales floor hunting for clothes." "What did I tell you about whining?" "I'm not whining." "You are. Not everyone can afford to have a stylist shop for them, pick their clothes, and drop them off with the snap of a finger." "You don't know what you're missing." Trenton slumped in the chair and spread his legs so that his knee bumped Alannah's. Crossing his arms, he let his head fall to the back of the sofa and closed his eyes. "Wake me when she has your outfits picked out." "Don't fall asleep." Alannah nudged him with her elbow. He kept his eyes closed. "Quit." Alannah rested her head on his left shoulder. A comfortable, familiar position. "Julia is a personal shopper for the store. Why didn't I think of this before?" The scent of honeysuckle filled his nostrils, and Trenton turned his face into her hair. This time he didn't just enjoy the smell. He reveled in it, and a curious sensation rippled across his abs. He tugged her braid to distract from the feeling. "You told me not to fall asleep, and look at you. Don't you fall asleep." "I won't," she giggled, settling more snugly against him, as if she belonged there. But she did belong, and could always have his shoulder to lean on. "Don't be too sure. I've been told plenty of times I have a very comfortable shoulder." He didn't know why he said that, almost as if he had to, because something felt off. She didn't respond at first, but then she whispered, "I bet." Her voice sounded odd when she said that. Maybe he'd actually dozed off for a little bit, but the next thing he knew, Julia announced herself and stood in front of them with garments thrown over her forearm and numerous belts and other accessories in hand. "This way," she said, and Alannah hopped up from the sofa to follow behind. She cast a quick glance over her shoulder at Trenton. She looked so excited, like a kid at a preview sale for cupcakes. He smiled back, ready to perform the very important task of critiquing her outfits when she came out. But he wasn't prepared for what he saw. The first evening dress she tried on was gorgeous. In the front, that is. "The entire gown is made of chiffon," Julia explained. The gown was halter-topped with a white empire waist, and the bottom half, black, curved into a bell shape and swept the floor. That was all fine, but when Alannah did a 180 turn, Trenton saw the thigh-high split and that her entire back was exposed, which meant no bra. He sat up. "What do you think?" Alannah grinned from ear to ear. Examining her image in the mirrors, she turned this way and that. "Where's the rest of it?" Trenton asked. Julia laughed. "This is the whole dress." She smoothed the material over his friend's left hip. Alannah tilted her head at her reflection. Do you have a smaller size? This is a little big up top. Julia shook her head. You don't need a smaller size. She pulled the edges at the back so the bodice flattened against Alannah's body and emphasized her small bust to a distracting level. Maybe a little tailoring at the top, but the skirt fits you perfectly. You've got some hips, so we don't want to go too small. What do you think, Trent? They both looked at him expectantly, eyebrows raised, waiting for an answer. His throat tightened and he willed his eyes not to lower to her breasts. Looks aight, he replied. Alannah pursed her lips and turned sideways to the right, showing off the length of one creamy leg to mid-thigh. Then she shifted to the left. His eyes narrowed on the freckles spattered across her back. For anyone to see. Definitely showing too much damn flesh. Practically naked. A vein in his temple throbbed. I like it, but let's try something else. This is definitely a possibility. Alannah shot him the thumbs-up sign before hurrying back to the dressing room. Trenton let out the breath he'd been holding and swiped a hand down his face, removing the small beads of sweat that had popped out. What the hell kind of outfits had Julia picked? Alannah was a nice girl, not one of those women who showed all their goods for the world to see. Before too long, both women returned. This time, Alannah wore a short black dress that, in his opinion, barely covered her ass and hugged it too much. What the hell is that? Heart racing, he shot to his feet. Half the dress is missing. That dress was unacceptable. Unacceptable. Two sets of eyes widened in surprise and looked at him. It's a cocktail dress, Julia answered. I see that. A real cocktail dress. Heat prickled the nape of his neck and he swallowed the tightness in his throat. Alannah sent a strange look in his direction. Julia frowned at him. Black, high-heeled sandals dangled from her fingers, and sparkly things like jewels covered the thin straps. To his dismay, she bent down and encouraged his friend to put on what could only be classified as hooker pumps. Alannah slipped them onto her feet, and a transformation took place. The heels had her calves looking right, and her posture improved. Overall, she looked fantastic. Taller and sexy, with elongated legs and her butt displayed in all its round, grabbable glory in a dress that left absolutely nothing to the imagination. Trenton's stomach knotted up, and his blood pressure spiked high enough to cause heart failure. Alannah took 2 steps in the heels and twisted her ankle. He almost ran to her, but Julia was there, lending a steady hand. Careful, Julia said. You can't walk like you're in tennis shoes. You have to move those hips, and you have plenty. Staring down at her feet, Alannah let out a low-pitched, nervous laugh. I guess I'll have to practice. I've never worn heels this high. Chewing the corner of her mouth, she shot a look in Trenton's direction. What do you think? She asked timidly. I don't like it, he answered, shaking his head vehemently. Julia gawked at him. What's not to like? She's got great legs, and now they're shown off in a nice pair of shoes. The dress fits her body perfectly, emphasizing her best attributes in a positive way. It's all about finding clothes appropriate for your body type. Trenton scowled. Who asked you? Alannah gasped. Trent! He pointed at her. Stay right there. Don't move. He marched onto the sales floor and moved swiftly through the racks, spotting and pulling 2 dresses much more appropriate for Alannah to wear. Then he hurried back to both women, Alannah shooting Julia an apologetic smile, and Julia standing with her hands linked together in front of her and her mouth set in a flat line. Clutching a dress in each hand, Trenton held them up like trophies. These are better. Both were long-sleeved. The black dress would probably fall right below the knee, and the multicolored dress should reach her around the ankles. He held the black one toward Alannah. And this one has sparkly things on it, and it's black, so it's perfect as an evening dress or cocktail dress or whatever. Alannah and the salesperson looked at each other. He chose not to decipher the look. Alannah trusted him and had trusted him and his opinion for over 20 years. His opinion held much more weight than some saleswoman looking to pimp her out like a common prostitute. A tight, close-lipped smile lifted the corners of Alannah's mouth. Would you excuse us for a minute?" Julia nodded and went to straighten sweaters at a table out of earshot. Folding her arms, Alannah shot Trenton what she thought was her angry stare, where she furrowed her brow and pursed her lips. Instead, she looked absolutely adorable, but now wasn't the time to mention it. He was upset, and she was annoyed. "I know what you're doing, and you don't have to do this. Really," she said. "Really? 'Cause I'm worried you're going to catch a cold in those dresses." Alannah raised an eyebrow at him, but he kept his expression blank. She sighed and rolled her eyes to the ceiling. "You're doing what you always do. The big brother routine. I get it. I'm showing a lot of skin." "So then what are you doing? You look indecent." He sounded like a 95-year-old man, but he couldn't think of anything else to say. Her eyes stretched so wide he could clearly see the muted green ring around the brown. "Are you serious?" "Yes, I'm serious. You look like a damn prostitute." Her face flushed red, and that's when he realized he'd gone too far. A dull ache of regret filled his chest. "You should go," she said in a tight voice. She spun around and wobbled toward the dressing room. Trenton tossed the dresses on the sofa. "Wait." He rushed around in front of her, easy to do since she couldn't move very fast in the heels. "I didn't mean what I said." "You said I look indecent." "You said I look like a prostitute." "Maybe I shouldn't have said that." Trenton rubbed his forehead, in search of a better way to express the turbulent emotions he'd felt when he saw her transformation. "It's just, you don't have to do all of this." He waved a hand at the entire disturbing ensemble. A customer smiled at them and sidled by into one of the dressing rooms. "You date women who look like this all the time, Trent," Alannah said in a low, brittle voice. She folded her arms. "That's different." "How is it different? Because it's me? How else am I going to get noticed if I don't look like everyone else?" "Why do you want to be noticed for?" he demanded. She shook her head and spoke in a low, controlled voice. "You don't get it, do you?" "Of course not. Because people like being around you. You walk into a room and everybody, women and men, flock to you. Women throw themselves at you every single day. I mean..." She lowered her voice and darted a gaze in Julia's direction. "She would have jumped you if I hadn't been standing right there. You don't understand what it's like for the rest of us. To be invisible." It never occurred to Trenton that Alannah thought of herself in that way. She dated and had plenty of friends. "You're not invisible." "Yes, I am." "No, you're not," he insisted. He had to rid her of that ridiculous notion. "Most of my friends are your friends. The only time anyone notices me is when I'm with you." Trenton edged toward her, anger pulsating through his muscles. He couldn't stand to hear her talk about herself in such a negative way. "You're wrong. Your perception, my perception, is my reality." Had she always felt this way? He wanted to fix this but didn't know how. "You don't have to do this, though. You're fine the way you are." "It's not enough. I want to be lusted after and checked out and whistled at like other women." Staring at her feet, Alannah restlessly plucked the hem of the dress. Trenton grasped her wrists. He ducked his head and stared into her eyes. "You're better than other women. The kind of attention you're going to get is from men like me. Men who only want to use you. You don't want that kind of attention, do you?" Sadness shimmered in the depths of her eyes. It killed him to think that he was the reason her earlier euphoria had been dampened. But he had to get through to her. "Just once. I don't want to be the good girl or the nice one. Just once. I want to be the pretty one. In my college yearbook, someone wrote I'd make a nice wife one day. Who writes that? I want men to look at me and want to screw my brains out." Trenton dropped her hands and took a step back, from shock as well as the lurid thoughts that immediately came to mind. Unacceptable for him to think about his best friend in this way. Naked, legs in the air, getting screwed. By him. He suddenly became aware of his heart's rigorous pounding against his thoracic cavity. "Do you know what I mean?" Her eyes pleaded for understanding. A tightness lodged in his chest, and Trenton struggled for air, harsh breaths banging the walls of his lungs like bumper cars threatening to bounce off track. "Yeah, I know what you mean." Unfortunately. Chapter 6. Alannah bought the first dress and left the other outfits behind. She and Trenton exited Macy's in quiet, an unusual occurrence for the two of them. "I'm done for the day," she announced. They stopped in front of the main entrance to the mall. Her excitement about the shopping trip had dulled dramatically. She'd made a mistake accepting Trenton's offer of help. Trenton didn't argue, but his wrinkled brow conveyed his contrition. "About what I said, Lana. I'm not used to seeing you like that, and it threw me. That's all." "I understand. I have to get used to the changes too. But I'm excited." "Obviously." He scratched his head and scanned the busy mall. "There's nothing wrong with change," Alannah pointed out. "There's good change and bad change. Once you start dressing a certain way, men start looking at you and thinking things. It's not right. You're special." He swallowed. Translation. Boring. Plain. Invisible. "I'm not walking down the street half naked. The clothes fully cover me." I know. Still." He frowned. "This guy you're trying to impress. If he can't see you for who you are right now, then maybe he doesn't deserve you. He might not be right for you." "I'm making these changes for me, not him." "I don't want you to make a mistake." "And you haven't made mistakes? I've warned you about certain women, but you don't listen. Remember when you wanted to impress that woman who makes the energy bars? You actually tried to adopt a vegan diet?" "Don't remind me," he groaned. He covered his face with a hand. "Worst 48 hours of my life." Alannah grinned. "I told you something about her rubbed me the wrong way." Truth be told, all of his entanglements rubbed her the wrong way, some more than others. That particular woman turned out to have a very specific agenda. She hadn't been interested in Trenton, but went out with him because their high-profile relationship brought much-needed publicity to her company. I remember. And let's not forget the one with the ridiculously huge breast implants. Who? Don't act like you don't know who I'm talking about. The one who wanted to land a Playboy spread. What was her name? Boobies McBoobage, wasn't it? He chuckled, almost doubling over with laughter. Come on now. She wasn't that bad. Alannah quirked an eyebrow at him. Oh, really? She looked ready to tip over. Didn't she wear a back brace so she wouldn't? Now you're just being mean. Alannah shrugged. All I'm saying is, we're both adults, and we're going to make mistakes. But even with that, I don't think this guy is a mistake. He watched her in silence for a moment, and then flipped his gaze to the shoppers milling around. I wish you would at least let me know who he is. He brought his eyes back to her. I will, in time. You keep this up, I'm going to start thinking he's an ex-con. Trenton sighed. But I'll leave you alone for now. Come here. I'm not hugging you. Come in for a hug. He motioned with his hands. You know you have to get the hug. She groaned, pretending to be upset, but when he pulled her into his arms and kissed the top of her head, she felt as if she were right where she should be and didn't want to let go. Her cheek rested against his firm chest, and she inhaled his Trenton smell. He didn't have on cologne today, so it was just him. Pure masculinity and achingly familiar. She squeezed her eyes shut and hugged him tight, wishing he could see her as more than someone he had to protect. When she felt as if she would drown in her emotions, she pulled back. Okay, that's enough. She bit her bottom lip to keep it from trembling. Trenton took a couple of steps back and cleared his throat. I better go, he muttered, almost to himself. They said their goodbyes and he sauntered away. Alannah watched his progress down the wide hallway to the exit. He moved slow and easy, with long, confident strides, the black shirt hugging his broad back, and a full head above almost everyone he passed. At the doors, he turned, waved to her, and walked out into the sun. On Sunday, Alannah met Terry for brunch at a French bakery on Queen Anne Avenue. The big red house served as a gathering spot for residents of the neighborhood and offered an assortment of sweet and savory pastries in addition to breakfast and lunch. She settled into a chair on the front porch and idly perused the menu, although she knew it by heart. She needed to kill time since Terry was late, as usual. Right as she decided to have the croque monsieur, Terry bounded up the stairs and sashayed over in a pair of tight, worn jeans. Terry had the kind of shape that made anything remotely fitted look indecent, but had no qualms about showing off her body. She owned her figure, and Alannah envied her I-don't-give-a-crap attitude. Blonde braids hung over one shoulder, and as she walked, her ample hips caught the attention of the male half of a couple exiting the restaurant. The man turned his head to stare at her butt and was popped in the back of the head by his female companion. Terry missed the entire episode unfolding, but Alannah was used to seeing men react to her in that way. Terry spread her arms wide. "Hey, honey, how are you?" Alannah stood and gave her a warm hug. Terry grinned. "I love the hair. The color turned out fabulous." Alannah blushed. "Thanks." The stylist in Arizona had used the specific color Terry had recommended. "How was your trip?" Her friend settled into a chair and picked up the menu. "It was nice to get away and see my parents again." Alannah gave Terry a quick rundown of her activities while on vacation and then set a snow globe on the table. "Voila! I brought this back for you." The souvenir had Arizona across the bottom and inside a cactus and a man on a horse. Terry's eyes lit up with delight. "You didn't have to bring me back anything." She snatched up the souvenir and caressed it the way a fortune teller rubbed a crystal ball. "Now you can add it to your collection." "Thank you." She slipped it into her purse and then crossed her arms on the table. "You know, you never told me what Trenton thinks about the new you." Before Alannah could go into details, the waitress arrived and they placed their orders. Afterward, Terry set her chin in her hand, her expectant expression making Trenton's lackluster response even more embarrassing to share. Alannah schooled her features into an expressionless mask, even though heavily disappointed. His reaction was pretty non-existent. He doesn't really care one way or the other how I look. He didn't say anything at all? Only that the changes were nice and different, whatever that means. Oh. He doesn't care, Terry. Stop trying to be a matchmaker. We're friends. That's it. A car passed by slowly. The driver cast his eyes back and forth, looking for parking on the crowded street. "So what's next?" Terry asked. "I'm going to continue my summer makeover. I feel so much better about myself because of the changes." Terry folded her arms on the table. "How can I help?" "Going shopping with me will help. Trenton met me at the mall yesterday, and it was a total bust." "What happened?" Alannah gave her a quick summary of their short trip to Macy's. "Yikes," Terry said, frowning. "You two have the strangest relationship. But don't worry, Mama's here." She patted Alannah's hand. "What exactly are you looking for?" "In general, new clothes. I found a few outfits in Arizona when my sisters dragged me to the mall, but I need more. Clothes that are nothing like the frumpy crap I'm always wearing. I want to show off my figure, what little figure I do have." You have a great figure. I have no boobs. You, on the other hand. She stared with envy at Terry's ample chest. Her friend waved away the remark. Honey, these things are a blessing and a curse, believe me. More of a blessing, Alannah muttered, noting the way Terry's cleavage peeked out the top of her neckline. Tell you what, you can have my breasts, and I'll take Trenton as my best friend because friendship has its privileges. She looked pointedly at Alannah's parked car across the street. Heat filled Alannah's cheeks. I didn't ask for it. But you love it, don't you? I thought it was too much when he gave it to me. Yet you didn't turn it down. How could I? Once I drove it, I couldn't say no. The leather is so comfy and plush. There's a start-stop button, massaging seats. She sighed. She could never have afforded such an expensive vehicle with all the options Trenton had tossed in. To give her peace of mind, he'd even covered maintenance and repairs on the car. And then there's that. Terry pointed to the one-of-a-kind Marc Jacobs bag on the chair. Made of soft calf leather, the cashew-colored purse had Alannah's initials, A.B., as a buckle in solid gold on the front. Trenton knew the designer personally and had requested he create something special for her last Christmas. The bag had no retail value. It was literally priceless, because there wasn't another one like it in the world. Not to mention all the trips you've taken with him and his family. He takes care of you the way a man takes care of his wife. You guys are practically a couple already. You just don't have the sexual component. So yeah, I'd gladly take him off your hands. There aren't too many men doing favors like he does without expecting something in return. Terry arched a threaded brow. That was the problem. He spoiled her. No doubt about it. He was very generous, and she had all the benefits of a relationship without the relationship. Alannah swallowed the tennis ball-sized lump in her throat. She'd like to cut herself off from him completely, go cold turkey, but that would be the equivalent of getting off a highly addictive drug like meth or heroin. The results could be disastrous. So when do you want to go shopping again? Terry asked, recapturing her attention. You free next Saturday? Yep. Perfect. Alannah felt her spirits lifting already. She held up her glass of water. To new beginnings. To new beginnings, and bringing out your inner wild child. Terry growled low in her throat and tapped her glass against Alannah's. Alannah laughed and swallowed a mouthful of water. With her friend's encouragement, she felt confident she'd be successful with the planned changes. This summer, a brand new Alannah would emerge. And if all went well, she'd be able to leave her feelings for Trenton Johnson far behind. Chapter 7. Alannah had told Trenton to use his key when he came over for dinner. He entered the townhouse and paused when he heard a low growl. The sound came from the wall near the staircase, in the small cage holding her Yorkie, Angel. He had no idea why the dog hated him so much. She either barked at him like he was an intruder, or scampered into the cage to avoid him altogether. Once she'd even used her paw to pull the door shut. Then she'd plop down on the pillow with her back to him, as if she couldn't stand the sight of him. What the heck is wrong with that damn dog? He'd asked Alannah once. Everybody likes Trenton. Probably because you talk about yourself in the third person? Angel had growled at him from Alannah's arms. That has nothing to do with it. She's just a bitch. Literally. Alannah had frowned. Did you do something to her? No, but I should. Hate that damn dog. Stop. She'd covered the dog's ears and held her closer. She'll hear you. And stop calling her that damn dog. She's sensitive. Her name is Angel. Devil is more like it, he'd said below his breath. What did you say? Nothing. Right now, Angel stood on the padded floor of the cage on 4 stubby legs, body taut, tail straight up in the air, and lancing Trenton with the meanest face she could. I regret the day I bought you, you know that? He said in a fierce whisper. She barked at him and then made another low growl, as if contemplating his demise. Angel my ass, Trenton grumbled. He followed his nose to the kitchen, from where he smelled an enticing scent, which meant Alannah was hard at work. For years, he'd been her guinea pig when she tried new recipes. He couldn't wait to taste the new creation. When he entered the kitchen, he heard Boaz Eat You Up on low, coming through the iPod speakers sitting on a corner of the breakfast bar. Alannah smiled when she saw him, and his heart did an odd little flip that stopped him in his tracks. Where did that come from? He rubbed his chest to alleviate the odd sensation. Almost done? Almost. Get ready for a masterpiece, she boasted. She turned back to the stove, which gave him a chance to take a good look at her. Her auburn tresses were pulled up into a high ponytail, and she wore a thin black t-shirt that looked like it was at least one size too small, something the old Alannah would have never done. He did, however, recognize the oversized sweatpants. She started dancing to the music. "This is going to be so good," she sang. "Please stop," Trenton said. "You're the most uncoordinated black woman, no, black person, I know. The only reason you still have your black card is because I bribed a bunch of folks during the appeal process so you could keep it. You're just jealous of my moves. Bet you can't do this." Alannah performed a very awkward moonwalk. "Michael Jackson is rolling over in his grave right now." He shook his head. "Sorry, Michael, I tried to stop her." She stuck out her tongue and returned her attention to the stove. Trenton took a seat in one of the high-backed wooden bar stools at the breakfast bar in front of a tall glass of lemonade and watched her work. He licked his lips, mouth watering from the scent of the ribeye steak. On occasion, a personal chef cooked his meals whenever he wanted to eat at home and didn't feel like cooking himself, and he also had the option of going to his mother's house and eating some fine cooking from Adelina. Yet there was something about Alannah's food that always tasted that much better and brought him comfort. She was much better than she used to be. He recalled her failed attempt at making bananas Foster. "What are you smiling about?" she asked. She set a ribeye on a plate in front of him and spooned blue cheese sauce over it. His stomach danced in anticipation. "Thinking about the time you almost burned down the kitchen trying to make bananas Foster?" She swirled the sauce around the plate. "What a mess. I can't believe the towel caught fire like that." Trenton chuckled. "Be glad it wasn't worse." She joined him in the laughter, but kept her eyes on the plate, concentrating on the artistry of the dish. "I am glad, believe me." "Even with that mess and the panic, the bananas turned out delicious," he pointed out. "They did, didn't they? I should try that recipe again. I've been too nervous to attempt it because of the near accident. I'm sure your flambé skills will be much better now." Alannah spooned roasted potatoes beside the steak. Then, of course, there was the great quiche incident of '09. Trenton groaned. "I can't believe you ate so much of it and didn't say anything." Alannah shook her head in disbelief. "I gagged once I tasted it myself. I didn't want to hurt your feelings, but man, that was some nasty stuff. You really took one for the team, and I appreciate it. Thank goodness for the best Thai restaurant." She spooned creamed spinach beside the steak and used a paper napkin to swipe the circumference of the plate for a cleaner look. She finished by dropping chopped parsley onto the potatoes as a garnish. "Oh yeah, that was the first time we ate there." With dinner a bust, they'd driven to the restaurant to get something to eat and had been loyal customers ever since. Alannah cut into the steak. She twisted it in the blue cheese sauce and then blew on it. "Tell me what you think of this." She lifted the fork to his mouth. Trenton leaned in, pulled off the meat and chewed. Well seasoned and cooked to a perfect medium rare. Delicious. That's good." She pumped a fist. "Yes! You really like it?" "Mm-hmm." He yanked away the fork and knife. She giggled as he cut another piece of meat. "Can't believe how good this is." The creamed spinach and roasted potatoes tasted perfect as well. He could have been dining in a fine restaurant. "This is better than your steak and mushroom gravy." "No way. You love that dish. You rave about it for days every time I make it." "I know, you don't make it enough," Trenton said around a mouthful of food, enjoying the dish too much to stop eating long enough not to talk with his mouth full. He pointed at the plate with the fork. "But seriously, I'm saying this is even better, so you know it's good." "Great," Alannah said with satisfaction. She skipped back to the stove. "This is good practice because I'm serving it to my new guy friend for dinner on Friday night." A piece of meat lodged in Trenton's throat. With difficulty, he swallowed it, and then took a big gulp of lemonade. He cleared his throat. "You're cooking for him now?" She and the mystery man had only been going out for a few weeks. Alannah piled dirty dishes into the sink. "I like him," she said, as if that made it okay. "You're doing a lot for this guy, and I haven't met him yet." He tried to keep the edge out of his voice, but this character was now encroaching onto sacred turf. She hardly ever cooked for anyone else except Trenton, and when she did, it was usually family or close girlfriends. "And you're not going to meet him." "Excuse me?" He must have misunderstood her. "I said, you're not going to meet him." "Why not?" Trenton demanded. He set down the knife and fork. Alannah turned to face him and placed her hands on the edge of the counter behind her. "I don't mean you'll never, ever meet him. But you won't right now. I really like this guy. And you know how you get. All big brotherish on me. Because I care about you. I have to weed out the bad ones. Is that a crime?" "Trust me, he's a good one." A beatific smile filled her face, and his heart sank with the force and velocity of an anchor in the sea. Was she really that much into this guy? "If he's a good one, let me meet him," he said. "No, you'll intimidate him. He already knows we're best friends, and he's still interested. Most men can't handle when they find out I'm best friends with someone as stinkin' rich as you are." He gritted his teeth. "Whose fault is that? A real man wouldn't fall back because the woman he's interested in has a rich best friend." She tilted her head at him. "You know good and well that's not true. You men have very fragile egos, and I don't want him to run off before we've even had a chance to really get to know each other." Having lost his appetite, Trenton tossed his napkin onto the counter. "Do you know how ridiculous you sound? It's as if you'd rather find out later that he's a jerk than finding out now. That's why I have to screen these guys. I'm a man, and I know what to look for." She sighed dramatically. "You're a man, and you chase them off. Between your money and your good looks and the fact that you can become very overbearing, it's a wonder I've been able to keep boyfriends over the years. And really, they've only been the ones that you approved of. All of the others have run off. Because they're scared punks," he bit out. "Because you scare them off," she corrected. Trenton tapped his forefinger on the top of the bar. "At least tell me this Negro's name." Something flitted across her features that he couldn't decipher, and she bit the inside of her lip. "What's that look?" "If I tell you his name, you'll end up doing a background check, and I don't want any negativity about him. I really like him, Trent." "Again, you sound ridiculous. As if you'd rather find out the bad things after you've already fallen for him. Can you at least tell me his first name? That won't hurt. Will it? That way I can stop calling him that guy." All he needed was a first name. He already knew the competition. Rather, the other guy worked at her job. He could easily figure out the rest. An odd expression came over her face again, as if she was hiding something. "His name is Connor." "Connor?" Trenton frowned. Then he guessed why she'd reacted so oddly when he initially asked for a name. "Wait a minute. Is he black?" "There are black men named Connor," she said. Her eyes briefly darted away from his. "But is he black?" he pressed. "No. He's white," she said, and folded her arms defensively across her chest. "He's white?" "So what?" she asked defiantly. "You're dating white men now?" "You've dated white women, or slept with them." She waved a hand dismissively. "Or whatever you do with women." He ignored her snide remark. "I have dated white women, but—" She placed a hand on her hip. "But what?" His mouth clamped shut. He couldn't think of a valid argument against her dating interracially, but he couldn't hold his annoyance in either. "You're all over the damn place." "Your ridiculous hypocrisy is showing," she said. Trenton rubbed his forehead. He was getting a headache. "I don't understand what you're doing." "I'm dating." I'm casting a wider net. It's really not that unusual." No, it wasn't unusual, but that didn't mean he had to like it. "I barely even know you anymore," he muttered. She was dating white men, cooking for them, and refusing to let him meet them. A wave of anger crashed through him. Why change the dynamics of their relationship? They had a good thing going here. He jabbed a finger at her. "You know what? You're changing. Ever since you got your hair done and started working on a new wardrobe, you've been acting brand new." The corners of her mouth tightened. "So you don't like anything about my makeover?" "No, because you're changing, and not in a good way." Her eyes widened and she didn't respond at first. His accusation seemed to have surprised her. "I'm still the same person. You're the one acting different. If I'm acting different, I'm feeding off the energy you put out." It was always the two of them against the world. "I've always been there for you. I take care of you. I protect you," he said, grasping at straws. Their gazes locked, and tension bridged the short distance that separated them. "Maybe I don't need you to protect me anymore." The quietly spoken words squeezed the air from his lungs. Trenton rested his forearms on the counter and stared down at the plate of forgotten food. "That's what I do." He'd been doing it for years, from the day they met. Her slippered feet moved quietly on the kitchen floor, and then she stood behind him. "That's not what I need from you anymore," she said thickly. Her voice reflected what he felt, emotions bubbling inside of him. A cosmic shift was taking place in their relationship, and he couldn't stop it. His stomach burned from the unnatural fear that overcame him. Alannah wrapped her arms around his torso from behind and rested her head on his shoulder. "I feel like this is a stupid argument, like you're picking a fight with me. If you're worried about me replacing you, don't be. We've known each other too long and been through too much together. You know me better than anyone else. I'll always need you, Trent. Just not in the way I have in the past." Her words were meant to make him feel better, but they were ugly, and they hurt. They gutted him. "Things are different now. I'm different. But you're irreplaceable in my life. You're my best friend, Trent. I don't want to lose you. I can't." The sensation of her heart beating into the muscles of his back provided a bit of comfort, and the sweetness of her scent surrounding him eased his unrest. Trenton swallowed the lump in his throat, angry at himself for the irrational hurt and anxiety he felt. He had no idea where it stemmed from. He twisted in the chair and pulled her around so he could cup her face in his hands. He saw the sadness in her hazel eyes and hated being the cause, ashamed of the guilt he'd heaped on her. Then, as if his vision cleared, he didn't see only a friend he wanted to hug and console. He saw the woman this Connor character undoubtedly saw. Skin the color of a milky tea, freckles, and coral-tinted rosebud lips that invited a man to kiss. The thought that this guy, who placed a smile of bliss on her face so unlike any he'd seen before, would have the pleasure, sent a heaviness into his abdomen. "You won't lose me," Trenton promised. For now, he wanted to reassure her and wipe the worry from her brow. "I'll always be here." He pulled her into a hug, more for him than for her. He held on tight, her soft body molding into the harder planes of his. He said the right words, but deep down, he knew it was the beginning of the end, and his stomach tangled up into knots. Foreign knots. Knots he'd never experienced before. She would never lose him, but he knew without a doubt that he was losing her. Chapter 8. Trenton set down his pen and rubbed his eyes. He hadn't taken a break since he arrived at work this morning, and it was now time for lunch. He was so hungry he felt as if his stomach had turned on itself. As the senior vice president of sales and marketing, Trenton's office was located on the executive floor of the Johnson Enterprises building, the seat of his family's multi-billion-dollar beer and restaurant empire. Decorated with dark wood and leather furniture, the decor and dim lighting had prompted his sister, Ivy, to tease that his office felt more like the VIP room of a club or an exclusive lounge. Exactly the ambience he'd wanted. When people passed through the door for business, he wanted them to transition into a relaxed state. Doing so put him at a mild advantage and undoubtedly had aided him in negotiating lucrative contracts for the family's lines of beer. Trenton exited his office and stopped at his executive assistant's desk. Diana, a plus-size sister with a short natural and ass and breast for days, sat at her computer, reading an email that looked more like a dissertation. No doubt another message from Dave, a sales rep who had lots of ideas for improvements. While Trenton appreciated the suggestions, the young man needed a lesson or two on how to not be so verbose. "I'm going to lunch with Ivy," he said. Diana looked up from the screen. "Don't forget your 2 o'clock staff meeting about the festival." Johnson Brewing Company, also known as JBC, dispatched reps to the various festivals around the country and the world, but Trenton never missed the Great American Beer Festival, the Oscars for beer makers in the United States. JBC employed some of the best brewmasters in the industry, so they always brought home awards. But last year they'd won a silver medal in the specialty beer category, where the smaller craft breweries dominated. Having a commercial outfit of their size take home second place had been an unheard-of accomplishment. This year, they wanted a gold medallion to place on the wall. "I thought we pushed the meeting back," Trenton said. Diana shook her head. "We couldn't because the conference call with the Chinese reps was moved up to coordinate with the translator's schedules." "Oh yeah." Trenton checked his watch. He and Ivy would barely have an hour for lunch, which meant they shouldn't leave the premises. "In that case, would you call downstairs to the brew pub and tell them to reserve a booth for me and my sister?" As he walked away, Diana was already picking up the phone to make the arrangements. Trenton strolled down the hallway to Ivy's office, the executive floor quiet, since half of the staff had already left for lunch. Awards and framed articles about the company's accomplishments in the beer and restaurant industry hung on the walls. He passed by the empty desk where Ivy's assistant normally sat, knocked twice on the office door, and entered. "Ready to go?" His sister was actually his cousin. Trenton had been brought into the family as a child, after his parents died. From the beginning, his aunt and uncle had treated him as one of their own children, and his cousins had welcomed him as a brother. The fact that his skin was much lighter than their darker tones made others outside the family pause, but had no bearing on their closeness as a family. Ivy shut her laptop and slowly rolled her neck. "I sure am ready to go. I'm hungry. Starved, actually. Are you?" "I'm surprised you didn't hear my stomach from my office," Trenton joked. "I have a meeting in less than an hour, though, so we'll have to eat downstairs." Ivy stepped around the desk in a navy blue pantsuit, her long hair in a sleek bun at her nape. "Fine by me. Today's been a crazy day, so while I'm glad for the break, I have plenty of work to keep me busy when I get back." As the COO of the family's restaurant group, she oversaw the entire operations of their casual dining chain, the Brew Pub, and the high-end restaurants named Ivy's. Minutes later, they'd taken the elevator to the first floor and were nestled in a corner booth of the crowded pub. The chatter of patrons mingled with the clatter of cutlery on plates, and the aroma of hearty burgers, fries, and other pub fare filled the air. Trenton had a mug of Full Moon beer and a huge steak sandwich in front of him. Ivy had chosen a glass of white wine and a chicken sandwich on a brioche bun. They shared an order of Wreckham fries, the pub's famous appetizer, covered in chili, cheese, and jalapeno peppers. Occasional glances in their direction signaled the building employees and outside customers knew exactly who they were, but no one disturbed them. "How are the wedding plans coming?" Trenton bit into his sandwich. His sister had recently become engaged to New York Times best-selling author Lucas Baylor, the father of her daughter, and a man she'd lost touch with for many years, until they reconnected last year. "It's coming. Not like this is my first marriage, but Mother wants a huge society wedding, of course. Of course." Ivy's first wedding had been a rushed affair without the pomp and circumstance. The thing is, Lucas and I haven't picked a date yet, which is a bit problematic when planning something as grand as Mother wants. What's the holdup? Trenton sipped his beer. I told Lucas that I didn't want to get married until we found his biological family, and I meant it. Lucas had grown up in the foster care system after being abandoned as a child. It's the biggest day of our lives, and I want him to have his family there. How does he feel about that? Trenton popped a fry in his mouth. He pretends it's not a big deal and says he just wants to get married. But I know it hurts. He wants to know where he's from, and he wants to know who he is. But hasn't he searched before? He has, but he's never used Cyrus's guy. At the mention of their older brother, Trenton raised his eyebrows. Cyrus's guy already ran a background check on Lucas. That was a preliminary report to see if there was any dirt on him. I told Cyrus to have him dig deeper, to leave no stone unturned. I don't care how long it takes. I want something for Lucas. Anything. If anyone can find Lucas's family, he can. And if you're willing to wait, I'll wait. She smiled tentatively. I hope I don't have to wait too long, though. Trenton chuckled. Too late now. You put it out there. I know. She sipped her wine. Oh, I ran into Alannah the other day. Love the changes she's made in her appearance. She looks great, doesn't she? Trenton frowned. Yeah, I guess. You guess? She looked fabulous. I almost didn't recognize her. Ivy stabbed the fries with a fork and took a bite. Her eyes are gorgeous. You can really see them now without the glasses. Trenton grunted. Ivy arched a brow. Okay, what's going on? What am I missing? He searched for the right words to articulate his feelings. She's changing, he said. How? She just is. I don't understand. Do you not like her new look? I think she looks so much better, considering the way she used to dress. She made Catholic nuns look like a bunch of hussies. Trenton chuckled. Come on now. Well? Okay, I get your point. But I know her. And this isn't her. Fixing her hair and getting rid of the glasses aren't so bad, but the way she's starting to dress, I don't know. He shook his head and bit into the sandwich. Seriously, Trent, what's wrong with the way she's dressing? Trenton finished chewing and swallowed the bite. What was she wearing when you saw her? Skinny jeans and a really cute top? You have a problem with her clothes? Does she have to run her outfits past you first? Ivy narrowed her eyes and looked at him with interest. Trenton took a bite of his sandwich and chewed slowly, using the time to consider how much of his thoughts to share with his sister. I don't think she has to dress the way she's starting to dress to get a man's attention. She's pretty on the inside and out, so it's not necessary. But I have a feeling you're not going to agree with me on the clothes issue, so I'm not even going there. I know you'll agree with me on this, though. He sat forward on the edge of the booth's chair. She's seeing a new guy, someone from her job. His name is Connor, and she says she doesn't want to introduce me to him because I'll scare him off. He snorted. Ridiculous, right? Ivy shrugged. Doesn't surprise me. What? His hand froze halfway to his mouth with a fry between his fingers. You either badmouth the men so bad she breaks up with them, or you scare them off with your big brother routine. You're nuts. He waved his hand dismissively and popped the fry in his mouth. If that were true, why did I encourage her to date TJ in accounting? Because you don't consider him a real threat. A real threat to what? Your relationship with Alannah. I swear, sometimes I think you want her to be alone so you can have her to yourself. Ivy paused and narrowed her eyes. Is that it? Of course not. You just accused me of sabotage and, holding a crush for my best friend? You're being ridiculous. Heat crawled across his scalp. I don't think so, Ivy said slowly, eyes narrowing even more. In fact, now that I think about it, you sabotage all her relationships. No, I don't. Saboteur, she said, pointing. How can you even deny it? I let her. You let her? He sighed and shook his head. You know what I mean. Yes, I'm afraid I do. Ivy wiped her fingers on a napkin and tipped her head to the side. You don't even see it, do you? See what? Her brow wrinkled as she mulled the next words. You're jealous. Are you crazy? Trenton let out a bark of laughter and dropped his sandwich to the plate. He stared at his sister, who'd clearly lost her mind. That's my girl. My best friend. Ivy leaned across the table. You're jealous, Trent. Admit it, she whispered. She's dated guys over the years, and they all had to meet your approval. So what? His voice had gotten a little loud, and he stopped right away. He and Ivy glanced around at the other tables, but no one paid attention to them. Nonetheless, he lowered his voice. I was looking out for her. If you want to know the truth, I was protecting her from men like me. I know the signs and who they are because I'm that type of guy. She needs someone nice, not a man like me who comes with a lot of baggage. Besides, she's too good for me, and I'd hurt her. If I hurt her, I'd never forgive myself. Ivy ran her tongue along the inside of her cheek, an odd expression he couldn't decipher on her face. Slowly, he rewound the words he'd spoken. Trent, she said gently, don't. His throat tightened and he sat back in the booth. The food on his plate no longer looked appetizing, and the atmosphere at their table took a nosedive. They stared at each other, and his gut twisted. All of a sudden, the clank of the dishes and conversations at neighboring tables sounded louder. You're a good person, she said. No one is too good for you. You deserve— Stop. He held up a hand and pulled in a difficult breath. He couldn't look at her as he gathered his thoughts. When he lifted his gaze, he saw pity in Ivy's eyes, which made him angry. He hated pity. Stop trying to psychoanalyze me, he said in a hard tone. You're not qualified. Ivy nodded. Okay, I'll stop. An insufficient response, because she didn't understand. If she did, she wouldn't look at him as if she wanted to pull him into a hug and stroke his head. I need to get ready for my meeting, Trenton mumbled. He slipped from the booth. Trent? He pulled out his wallet. They owned the restaurant and didn't pay for meals, but the server had to be tipped. He tossed a $100 bill on the table. Trent, Ivy implored. He looked into her pleading eyes and flashed a quick, false smile. I'm fine. Walking away, Trenton abandoned the meal and his sister's company. Striding through the restaurant, he kept his head held high. He'd call her later and apologize, but right now he had to get out of there and away from the truth he didn't want to face about himself and his past, the truth of why he'd come to live in Seattle in the first place. Chapter 9. I'm at home now. We're good? Trenton asked, wrapping up the conversation with Ivy. He parked his white Range Rover in the garage of his condominium tower on the corner of Virginia and 4th Avenue in the heart of Seattle. Only steps to shopping, trendy hotspots and restaurants. The location offered the convenience of a 24-hour concierge, a rooftop terrace, and a fully equipped gym that he took advantage of whenever he had the opportunity. Of course. Take care, okay? Ivy said. I will. Talk to you later. He disconnected the Bluetooth on the call and pinched the bridge of his nose. He'd called to apologize for his behavior at lunch. They didn't dwell on why he'd reacted the way he did, but she'd accepted his apology. Trenton exited the vehicle and took the elevator up to his 2-bedroom penthouse on the 34th floor. The cabin opened into a private vestibule and he entered the interior door. After pushing a button on the electronic panel on the wall, the large open space became bathed in light, while at the same time, the low, soothing music of stringed instruments poured through hidden speakers. He crossed the hardwood floor to the kitchen, a chef's dream that contained a sub-zero refrigerator, Miele appliances, and plenty of counter space. It seamlessly flowed into a spacious living room with an 11-foot ceiling and large windows that spanned the height of the room. During the day, he had a clear view of South Lake Union in the distance, but at night, the dominant scenery consisted of little squares of lights in the nearby buildings. Trenton removed a beer from the refrigerator and took a huge swallow, mind still unsettled because the conversation with Ivy made him think about the past. After another swig, he frowned down into the dark brew. Ivy had accepted his apology because she knew he had some issues. Who wouldn't when your own mother didn't love you enough to keep from hurting you? When she hated you so much she took away the one person she knew you loved most in the world. He set the beer on the concrete countertop with a heavy hand. On the way back to his bedroom, Trenton started stripping out of his clothes. The tie he yanked off landed on the bed. The rest of his clothes came off quickly as he tried not to think about his difficult childhood and why it bothered him so much that Ivy brought it up. Usually he could handle thoughts about his past, but not tonight. He felt off and needed to escape the memories. Standing naked in the bedroom, he dialed Alannah's number, but the call rang 4 times and rolled to voicemail. He rubbed the back of his head, where a dull throb had emerged as the memory slithered closer with the dangerous intent of a snake. "Hey, wanted to see what you were up to tonight. Maybe we can get into something. Need you. Hit me back." Trenton disconnected the call, knowing she would get in touch as soon as she saw he'd called. In the meantime, he went into the bathroom and entered the glass-enclosed shower stall. He turned on the water as hot as he could stand and lathered his skin, but he couldn't wash away the painful memories of abuse. He didn't know why his mother didn't love him. At that young age, he had been unable to come up with a reasonable explanation for why she constantly hurt him, and to this day couldn't explain. The therapist had said that the problem lay with his mother, not him. Logically, he understood, but emotionally he grappled with the whys of the situation. What had he done? What would make her put out cigarettes on his back to teach him a lesson? Why did she lock him in a dark closet so often that up until he started college, he could never sleep in total darkness? Like many abusers, she'd threaten him to prevent him from telling anyone, including his father, because, as she said, not only did he deserve such treatment for his bad behavior, but the consequences would be much worse if the police came to take her away. She'd convinced him his father couldn't care for him because he traveled all the time, and he'd be left all alone to fend for himself. A fate, according to her, 10 times worse than what he experienced at her hands. Through snatches of conversation over the years, he'd learned that his mother had been an aspiring dancer, and his birth had killed her chances of going professional. Bitter and angry, she turned to drugs, which explained the random rages that usually ended with him suffering in some form or the other, emotional or physical abuse, oftentimes both. His mother had always been careful to concentrate the attacks on his back and upper arms. Doing so made it easy to hide the damage under his clothes, caused by the cigarettes or the crack of the electric cord tearing through his flesh. She steered clear of his face, but she'd attacked him there 3 or 4 times that he could remember. When she had, it was as if she couldn't help herself. On one occasion, she'd given him a black eye, and he'd missed a week of school so she wouldn't have to explain the bruising. Another time, she'd hit him across the face so hard, the belt buckle had drawn blood at his temple. To this day, he still had a barely visible scar that peeked from behind his hairline. After those episodes, Trenton had learned that keeping his head down was the best defense during her rampages. He couldn't see the scars on his arms and back anymore, and most days didn't think about what they represented. Hate. Helplessness. To be unwanted. To be unloved. The tattoos hid the marks, but the most important one didn't hide anything. It was on his chest, in the design of a sun. Inside the sun was the anniversary date of his parents' deaths, October 16th. The murder-suicide of his parents occurred when he was 7 years old. Neighbors called the police after hearing gunshots in the apartment where he lived with his mother and where his father visited whenever he returned to Philadelphia. The police arrived on the scene to find him covered in blood, and initially thought he had been shot. But he hadn't been. The blood belonged to his father. Within 24 hours of learning about the deaths, his uncle Cyrus, his father's older brother, and his wife Constance flew in, and days later brought him to Seattle amidst the media circus that broke out. During the entire ordeal, the only witness to the crime, Trenton, didn't speak. In fact, he stopped talking for an entire year. Talking had gotten his father killed. After he told his father what his mother had been doing to him, he came to take him away. Trenton would finally be safe, and they'd be together. Except that dream never came true. The day his father came to get him, his mother was in an agitated state. During the resulting argument, where she stood between father and son to keep them apart, his mother produced a gun and shot his father twice, right in front of Trenton. Then she did the unthinkable. She pointed the gun at her son. He'd closed his eyes, ready to die. Without his father, he no longer had a reason to live. But nothing happened. Then he opened his eyes. His mother's eyes filled with tears, and whatever demon she'd fought for years finally won. She put the gun in her mouth, pulled the trigger, and blew the back of her head off. Trenton couldn't remember much else after that. He vaguely remembered crying out, his own voice unrecognizable. He ignored his mother's inert form and flung himself across his father's motionless body. The life-sustaining liquid gushing from his chest covered Trenton's arms and saturated his clothes. He'd never forget that day for as long as he lived. "Come on, shake it off," Trenton said to himself. He stepped out of the shower and took a big blue towel off the towel warmer, dried off, and wrapped the towel around his waist. He swallowed 2 ibuprofen and looked down at his phone. A text from Alannah showed on the screen. He hadn't even heard the message notification. He'd been so distracted by the memories. "At dinner with Connor. We'll call you tomorrow." Trenton stared at the message. No matter what, they always called each other back. He braced his hand on the counter. The headache that beat against his skull exploded, and helplessness overwhelmed him. "Shake it off," he repeated. He rushed into the bedroom and snatched up his second cell phone, the one he used for the women he dated and other people who weren't family or part of his close circle. He scrolled through the names, selected Beth, and hit call. A breathless female voice answered on the first ring. "Trenton?" He could see her now, with a long, silky weave and perfectly made-up face. "Hey, baby, how are you?" He rubbed his forehead, hoping the pain medicine kicked in soon. "Fine. I didn't think you'd call." He forced himself to chuckle. "Why not?" "I don't know. I haven't heard from you since the last time we hooked up." She sounded uncertain. "But I'm glad you called," she added in a rush. "I've been busy. I'm free tonight. How about you?" "I am. Definitely free." "Good. Put on your sexiest outfit. I'm coming to get you." "Where are we going?" she asked, excitement adding even more breathlessness to her voice. Trenton thought for a moment. He should get away for the weekend and do some partying. "Vegas." "Oh my gosh, Trenton, really?" she squealed. "Really?" "For the night?" "For the weekend." "So you already have the tickets?" She sounded skeptical, as if she didn't believe the trip would actually happen. "We're not flying commercial. We'll use one of my family's smaller planes for the trip down." "Oh my gosh," she breathed. He laughed. Her excitement was contagious. "What should I pack?" "Don't worry about all that. Just be sexy when I pick you up. We'll buy everything else you need for the weekend when we get there." "Ooh, baby, I can't wait to see you." "I'm going to do something very, very special for you." He could only imagine. Beth was a very talented young woman. "I'll be there in an hour. Make sure you're ready, or I'm leaving without you." "I'll be ready in 30 minutes, she promised. They disconnected the call, and Trenton went to the huge, custom-designed walk-in closet. He hit a button on the wall, and his wardrobe scrolled by on a metal loop. When he saw the pieces he wanted to wear, he released the button and removed the shirt and slacks. He sprayed on cologne and dressed in a forest green shirt that he knew brought out the green in his eyes, and dark slacks. Checking out his reflection in the mirror, he had to admit he looked damn good. Tonight, this weekend, he would enjoy himself and get rid of the negative thoughts. He smiled at his reflection, rolled his shoulders, popped his neck, and headed out the door. Chapter 10. Alannah was staring through a microscope at tissue samples when the loudspeaker in the lab crackled. "Alannah Bailey, you have a visitor?" She lifted her head, frowning. She wasn't expecting anyone. A few coworkers glanced in her direction. Checking the wall clock, she saw that it was almost lunchtime, a good time to take a break anyway. She removed her gloves and tossed them in the appropriate receptacle and exited the lab. In the hall, she ran into Connor. He grinned broadly at her. "Hi there. I had a great time this weekend." "I did too," Alannah said. As always, Connor had been a perfect gentleman. After a rooftop dinner at Hard Rock Cafe, they'd gone down to Pier 57 and taken a ride on the Seattle Great Wheel and used the time in the long line to chat with another couple they'd ended up sharing the gondola ride with. Afterward, the four of them had walked to one of the bars on the waterfront and had drinks. "You have lunch plans?" Connor asked. "No, I don't. Care to join me? I only have 30 minutes to spare today, so we'll have to eat in the dreaded cafeteria." He shivered. Alannah laughed at his theatrics, covering her mouth with her hand. "That's fine. I'll suffer through it." She glanced at her watch. "I have a visitor, but I can meet you in, say, 5 minutes or so?" "Sounds good. I'll see you then." Smiling to herself, she took the elevator to the first floor. She stepped out of the cab and pulled up short when she saw Trenton leaning on the front desk, chatting up the security guard. Today he wore a black Italian suit, shiny black shoes, and an aqua and green striped tie over a crisp white shirt. Of course, the sight of him made her stomach flutter. Taking a deep breath, she approached. "Hey." "Hi there." He grinned, looking as if he was happy to see her. "What are you doing here?" She stuck her hands in her lab coat. "I came to eat lunch with you. I thought we could have lunch in the cafeteria." "You hate eating in the cafeteria." "Says who? I never said that." "Last time you ate here, your exact words were, quote, 'I'm never eating in this nasty-ass cafeteria again,' end quote." He frowned. "You really need to do something about that sharp memory of yours. It's way too good." He smiled again, in a really good mood. But why wouldn't he be after the weekend he'd had? "I just want to hang out, that's all." "I'm not introducing you to him," Alannah said in a low voice so the guards couldn't hear her. "What are you talking about? Who? I came to have lunch." "Yeah, right." Alannah stalked away from the desk to one of the glass walls in the lobby. Trenton followed, and she swung around on him. "I know you. You're not here to have lunch with me. You're here to meet him. But you might as well leave because I'm not introducing you." "Why the hell not?" No more smiling. "Because I'm not. I already explained all of this to you." "Makes me wonder if there really is a Connor," Trenton said, watching her closely. "Goodness me, I'm so sorry that every time I make a move, my relationship isn't splashed across the magazines and blogs like yours. Looks like you had a fabulous time in Vegas." She'd promised herself she wouldn't bring it up, but every time she saw him with one of his buxom bimbos, it bugged her. According to the gossip blogs, he and Beth had made quite a splash in Sin City, spending the entire weekend in the most expensive suite at the Wynn Hotel. One photo showed Beth standing over his shoulder at a poker game where Trenton had allegedly lost $500,000. But their schedule included more than gambling. They'd partied until almost daylight at one of the clubs at the hotel, and the next day indulged in hours at the spa, getting pedicures and his and her massages. The online article detailed everything they'd done, including the thousands of dollars spent on meals, drinks, and in the clothing stores along the Wynn Esplanade. "Listen. No, you listen. You don't get to tell me who and when I can date. You obviously don't listen to anything I say. I have no idea what you see in that brainless head case, but that's your choice. I guess you only like women who giggle and stroke your ego." "She's not as dumb as she looks," he muttered, sliding his gaze away from hers. At least he had the grace to be embarrassed. "Yeah, right. Do whatever you want, Trent. I couldn't care less." Alannah crossed her arms. "If that were true, you wouldn't be so mad." "You have no idea why I'm mad," she thought. "I have to go." She stared across the lobby at the employees and guests filing in and out of the building, but refused to look at him. "Was there anything else?" "Are you going to look at me?" He stepped close and brought his face to hers, forcing her to look at him. "She's nobody." Nothing had changed. Nothing would ever change. There were dozens of nobodies in his past, and there would be dozens in the future. Tears welled in her throat, but she held a tight rein on her emotions. "She likes you a lot, but you're playing games with her feelings. You don't know." She swallowed and took a shaky breath. He kept his eyes trained on her. "Fine, I'll leave her alone. It's not her, it's just everything." She stared down at the speckled tile and bit the inside of her lower lip. She wanted to tell him that it hurt to see him having such a good time with another woman. True, she hadn't been available. But did he have to flaunt his relationships like that? Neither of them spoke for a long time, and Trenton shoved his hands in his pockets. "You have a good time Friday night?" "Yes." She didn't look at him. "You have a good time in Vegas?" "It was okay. I would have preferred hanging out with my favorite girl, but she had plans with another man." She heard the smile in his voice and lifted her gaze to his. The words pulled at her heartstrings, but she had to stand firm. "I can't be at your beck and call all the time. Whenever you want to do something, I'm just available." "I see." His eyes grew hard. "Connor takes precedence now. Is that it?" "I didn't say that." "You didn't have to," he ground out. Rubbing the back of his neck, Trenton glanced out the window. His eyes came back to her. "What is it about this guy that makes him so different from the others?" "He's a good guy. A really good guy." But that wasn't what was different. She was different, because she had to break the hold Trenton had on her heart. "He opens doors and is extremely polite. He has 2 older brothers, but he's the one who moved back home to help take care of his invalid mother. He hired a nurse for her, but when he leaves work, he goes home and takes care of her, reads to her, and keeps her company in general. When he's not doing that, he does Meals on Wheels, runs marathons for charity, and works with other nonprofit organizations." Trenton frowned. "What is he, a saint?" "Like I said, a good guy. And he noticed me." "You get noticed more than you realize." Trenton's voice sounded terse, irritated. Alannah snorted. "Right." He kept his eyes on her. "So what about this weekend? You're coming, right?" This weekend, Trenton performed at the Underground, a low-key club with a devoted customer base owned by one of his frat brothers. Underground hip-hop artists and local bands received good exposure and found ardent fans there. Normally, she never missed one of Trenton's performances, but she didn't know if she could stomach it this weekend. Not with the pictures of him and Beth burned into her retina. The women falling all over him at the club would only sicken her more. "I don't think I can make it." "Why not?" "I have plans," she said, unable to think of a lie fast enough. "Break them." "I can't." "You seeing Mr. Perfect again?" A muscle in his jaw tightened. Maybe. They hadn't made any formal plans, but she was certain they could find something to get into. "I'm performing. I can't, Trent." Her heart hurt. "Lana, come on. You never miss our performances." His gaze held hers, eyes angry but pleading at the same time. "You were his last weekend. This weekend, you're mine." The words constricted her heart like tight bands. If he'd let her, every weekend. Every single day she'd be his. Alannah picked at a thumbnail and let out a breath of resignation, hating herself for being so weak. Fine. I'll come. Maybe going out with Trenton wouldn't be so bad, and the underground was a good place for her to see if the new and improved Alannah could garner more male attention. Trenton released a relieved breath. I'll pick you up. Sure. The usual time? He nodded. I'll see you Saturday. Saturday. Her eyes darted away from his. I gotta go. She rushed away without looking at him again. Couldn't risk it. This weekend you're mine. She blinked rapidly before the tears burning the back of her eyes could fall.